So we talk about one of misunderstanding is that karma is fixed. So instead of trying to, when something happens in your life or life of someone else, instead of trying to fix it by engaging in certain actions, not taking the actions by thinking it's all karma, so that was one, as I mentioned, there might be karma involved, karmic potential involved, but again, we talk about also the importance of the immediate cause and conditions. Sometimes people have, I don't know, maybe misunderstanding, but a doubt about is it right for us to interfere with someone's karma, and my view is if it can be interfered, we should. By interfering, if someone's suffering can be reduced, we should. Because one does not have to experience those sufferings in order to purify the negative karma. Is not only way to purify, If it is the only way to purify, then you shouldn't interfere, because otherwise they can never purify that. But because there are so many different ways to purify without having to experience them, so why not? Why not we interfere it? By interfering, if someone's suffering is reduced, someone's suffering can be relieved, then we should. Once I was asked by one Dharma student about, she had doubt about whether we can interfere, with someone's karma. Wouldn't it be better for allow that to continue and finish that karma? It doesn't have to be that way. So, by interfering, reducing, even the karma might not have been completed, but still it gives us, if we are able to give them the time and opportunity to purify, so they can purify, even having to go through whole completion that karma, they can purify without having completed that. Oh, which one? Oh, no. No. Killing, definitely not. Yeah. So that is again another, and I was saying, we are interfering all the time anyway. Even when we keep in our prayers, in a way we are trying to interfere it, whether we can interfere it or not. Isn't that interfering? When we are keeping in our prayer for their obstacles, their sickness, to be free of all of that or reduce that. So, it's nothing wrong as long as we can help someone to reduce and free from their pain and sufferings in that way. Of course, if the only way is if it is only way to purify it, to really have to experience that, then that will be another situation. But again, Buddha has taught so many different ways of purifying, so many different practice, meditations to purify those negative karma without having to experience them, and and complete those karma. And then, one of the another, sometimes people try to explain or try to have understanding the concept of karma within just one lifetime. And if you try to explain the karma from just one lifetime, within the one lifetime, then, there will be a lot of conflict, a lot of contradictions. To start with one, when someone is born with all different challenges, difficulties, as well as someone who is born with incredible positive qualities and incredible talent and ability, all of that. Where does that come from? If we are just talking from what is the cause of that from karmic point of view, if we don't take considerations of past life, if we try to just explain everything that we experience, everything that happens in our life within the point of view of karma, within just one lifetime, very beginning of their life, they started with that. Sometimes with so much incredible, positive qualities, and sometimes within a lot of difficulties. How do we explain that? Secondly, at the end of life, some people, after engaging in something very horrible, not long ago, they die. Do they have no consequences of such horrible actions? Is there no karmic consequences for that? Because we are talking about just one lifetime. Where is the consequence of such actions? Does karma doesn't apply to that? Does the law of cause and effect doesn't apply to that? Or other way around, someone might do something incredible, kind, compassion activities, giving their own life or anything to protect thousands, millions of life. And then after immediately they might die without having the experience, any result of that actions. What happened to that? Does that action doesn't have any consequences? Does that action doesn't have any result? Does karma doesn't apply to that? All these are cautions. If you just take a approach of trying to understand karma from one lifetime within that, which sometime practitioner or even sometime teacher, sometime they look from that perspective, not being able to trying to explain or understand karmic cause and result within that limited one lifetimes. If that is the case, also what happens, someone who engage in the virtues most of their life, living kind, compassionate life, supporting, helping, ethical, still they experience a lot of problems in their life. A lot of problems in their life, Whereas on the other hand, there are some individuals who might live their life very unethical, very cruel, very mean, and somehow things seems to go well in their life. They seem to have less difficulty, challenge, and problems. So how do you explain from karmic point of view? If you try to explain, how do you explain karmic point of view? It seems a contradiction to the explanation karma, because the explanation karma is that something, if you engage in something virtuous, being more ethical, being loving, compassionate, practice of generosity, patience, all of that, as a result, something positive happens from that. When you engage in unwholesome actions, unethical, cruel, mean, unkind actions, that the result should be something unpleasant, something bad. But it doesn't seem to correspond that way in these situations. Yes. So if we don't explain that from past life, then that is the thing I'm saying, that is where the problem happens. Yeah. So, but when we take considerations of understanding of karma from many lifetimes, then what you are experiencing, even someone who is very, let's say in this life, very unethical, very mean, very cruel, unkind, still they experience good things happening in their life. What they are experiencing is the result of past good life, their past good karma. And the result of such present action, they will experience in the future, either in this life, in the later part, or maybe next life, or maybe many life after. On the other hand, someone who have tried to live kind, compassionate life, ethical, kind, compassion, loving, caring life, and maybe they might face a lot of challenges, difficulty in this life. It is not a result of your actions, your present actions, or your present practices of that. It's a result, what you are experiencing, a result from the past negative karma. And whatever practice you have engaged into, virtuous practice, ethical, loving kindness, compassion, those you will experience result of that in the futures. That doesn't, everything you did, good things, has not been wasted. That just because you didn't experience this life, it doesn't mean that it was wasted. It was meaningless. It will manifest and experience in the futures. And I think that is important to understand. When we don't understand that, sometimes even with Dharma practitioners, they have been practicing Dharma, trying to live more, better, compassionate life, trying to be more ethical. And then they face a lot of challenges, difficulties in their life, and they started to doubt. Do you get it? They started to doubt about their practice. And maybe I'm having all this because I'm practicing the Dharma. Maybe if I don't practice the Dharma, maybe it will not happen. Do you get it? That clearly shows our understanding, belief in karma is not strong. That clearly shows. If we have a correct, strong understanding and belief in karma, you wouldn't have any doubt of that. It wouldn't make you shaky. It wouldn't make your practice shaky. When that happens, then it means we have to study, meditate more on karma, because our understanding of karma seems to be shaky. For true practitioners who have strong correct understanding and strong belief on that understanding, it doesn't make them shaky like that way. Instead, their trust in Dharma increase. Not doubt, but their trust in Dharma increase. Their faith in Dharma increase. It encourages their Dharma practice even more stronger. And we see with so many, great practitioners. You look at, Dalai Lamas, you look at Lama Zopa Rinpoche and many others, people who have known, both of them, from distant or closely, there have been some of the beings who have totally dedicated their life for others, totally giving their life for others, day and night, always thinking and trying to help and benefit others all the time, day and night. But even with their life, they were struck with a lot of challenges, difficulties, on physical level, on external levels. In Dalai Lamas, he have to, as we mentioned yesterday, he have to become a refugee. He have to leave everything behind. He continued to get attacked for him, for everything that goes wrong in Tibet. He's blamed for everything. All of that. And then many other conditions, even with his health issues, with his knee replacement and all of that, But their trust and confidence has never been shaken. But instead, their trust, confidence in Dharma have become more stronger. It has helped them to have more stronger faith and more stronger practice. And again, if we talk about, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, like, in 2011 when he had a stroke, even if he lived his life, dedicating whole his life for helping and benefiting that, totally dedicating. Despite all of that, he experienced that kind of challenges. Of course, this is physical challenges. Of course, there are many other things too, but that challenges. Has it shaken his faith in Dharma, his practice? Not at all. It made even his faith and trust in Dharma even more stronger. Even more stronger. Those are the things that when you have a strong practice based on correct understanding, and with that, based on that wisdom of understanding and strong, belief of faith based on that understanding, then, even when you try to be virtuous all the time, kind all the time, engaged in the virtues all the time, even despite that, even when you face those kinds of challenges, you wouldn't have that kind of shaky doubting, shaky, about your practice and the Dharma. So when it happens to us, then that means, our understanding and of that is also a little bit shaky, and that and that is same with, like the story of Domdemba, the Kadamba master, the main disciple of Adisha, who came from India to Tibet, and he has many disciples in India and also in Tibet, and Domdemba was his main kind of disciple. They are known as the spiritual father and son. And Domdenpa was, of course, a lay practitioner, and they are known as also the founder of Kadamba traditions. And again, Domdenpa was very kind, compassionate, dedicated his life, others. But his last stages, he got leprosy, Leprosy was quite spread at that time during those times in Tibet. And he also got a leprosy, at the later part of his life. But again, that didn't shake his faith, his practice. It made him more stronger. And he said, I have been prayings and doing prayings and doing this practice of Tonglen to take on others' suffering on myself. May other people leprosy ripen on myself. All of that is something that I have tried to practice. This is something that I have to pray. And, now it seems it's really happening. My prayer has been answered. Joy in that. Feeling joy in that instead of, aversions, bitter feelings, and doubt about the practice and everything. These are the experience and response of those practitioners who have really understood very well. But sometimes when we don't have that, sometimes, as I mentioned, we become a little bit shaky. When things started to go wrong, we started to feel, is things started to go bad because I started practicing Dharma now? Is that because now I'm trying to be more kind, compassionate now? Maybe I should have more selfish. Like before, I didn't have any problems or less problems. But now I'm trying to be less selfish. I'm trying to practice more kindness, compassion, and now things seem to happen. And so sometimes we might have those kind of doubt. Again, that is not having total or profound understanding or realization of that. That is so. In those cases, then again, is a reminder for us that when that happens, I should meditate more on karma. I need to do more on that because our understanding is not strong enough, profound enough. That is why we have those kind of doubt when things happen like that. So those are some of the things that misunderstanding related to karma. Um, and as I said, always, saying, is your karma, and not taking responsibility. Let me give you one example, story, I have a friend in the monastery, when he first came to the monasteries, he had problem with temper, short temper, very short temper, get very easily lose his temper very easily. When he first came, he had that issue. And then he and another monk were sharing a room. And then March 15 is the day when, is for the Tibetan is uprising days. And my friend was ready to go for that event. And he asked his roommate whether he's going, and he said no, he's not going. And he said, how come you are not going? We should support that our teachers, uh, to support for the cause of Tibet, which all our teachers come from and have given us so much, and how much hardship they went through for us to have less hardship, because the earliest teachers have done most of the hardship in establishing the monasteries. They went through, especially in South India, they were given a forest, so they have to cut all these forests. They live at the very beginning, they live in a tent and bamboo houses in such a very hot, humid places, and then building those monasteries and all of that, and, creating the field to grow things, all of that. So they went through a lot of hardship to establish monastery, where later when we went, we still have some hardship, but nothing like what they have gone through. We are not even talking about what they went through when they escaped and all of that, but even much later. And so my friend said, our teachers went through all this hardship to create this kind of better environment for us, so we can have less struggles and more easy, and we should be kind of, grateful and repay the kindness, at least to help participate in such awareness through such events. So the other friend was, I don't know whether he said for sake of just argument or he really means it, but he said, well, it's their karma that they have to go through all that. It's our karma that we didn't have to go through all of that. That is what he said, Uh, did he really mean it, or he was just kind of, sometimes people just like to make arguments, for sake of argument. Who knows? He said that, and my friend, he has a temper issue, and he really lost his mind. He really lost his mind. He couldn't control his temper. And he slapped him, and said, "This is your karma." He slapped him and said, "This is your karma." But again, he has a point either way. It was not nice way of. It was not the nice way of doing it. It's not a kind way of doing it. But there is the point in that. There is a point in that. So I cannot just go and slap everyone and say it's your karma. You have to take responsible for your actions. Definitely that other person might have a certain karma, whatever, but also you have your actions, your present action contributes towards ripening that karma and suffering of that karma of someone else. So therefore, we shouldn't be so careless in that and kind of ignore and neglect and the involvement of our actions in creating the suffering or increasing the suffering of someone else. And it can be same, especially when it comes to someone's, oh, it's their karma. It's so easy to say that again, isn't it? Just as it's easy to blame others, for everything that happens, bad happens in our life, everything bad, it is so easy to blame others. In the same way, sometimes it can be easy to blame, again, the karma in that way. And then not take your own responsibility for your own actions, your own decision, your choices, in yourself as well as with others, because someone is, whether it's one individual or collective, collection of a lot of people or sentient beings are experiencing a lot of suffering because of action of certain beings. Of course, there is their karma, but at the same time, there is a contribution, other person's behavior and action and attitude, immediate action that contribute towards the ripening of those karma. And so therefore, if there is any action that can be stopped from that person's action from contributing the sufferings, it should be stopped. And again, sometimes one of the things that, is so easy for us to, as I say, is karma. Is their karma. But even though that might be the case, there's karma and immediate cause and conditions, but it might not be so kind and compassionate to say that when someone is experiencing sufferings. To say, sometimes, again, when it comes to ourselves, maybe it's okay. But when it comes to someone, to give an answer so easily is their karma, might not be so appropriate answer and kind and compassionate to say, someone who is already experiencing that. So I think those are the things that, again, we have to be more mindful and aware, more mindful and aware how we use those, languages in terms of, in relation to here, we are talking about karma, So I think this is a little bit kind of related to some misconceptions of karma, Maybe I can take a couple of questions from the Zoom that they had before. Seems like with the lunch and the heat, everyone's dosing up.
Thomas, did you want to ask your question?
Juliet?
Please, can
Yes.
you hear me? Sorry, is the audio working?
Just keep talking for a bit and we'll see. I've got your question written down. I can ask it, or you can try now if you like.
Okay, I will read out my question. So I understand in Buddhism, determinism is refuted, is rejected. So this means that our mind has some capacity to choose or influence our next thought, our speech, or action. And therefore, we can create karma, like causes and conditions for future karma, or influence it, change it in some way. However, when I have a discussion with non-Buddhists, someone who believes in determinism, they will say, I argue that when our mind is making that choice, right, to create causes and conditions, that choice is already predetermined. So therefore, it is deterministic. And that means you don't have free will. You think you can make a choice, but it's already determined by some factors in your mind. And therefore, they argue for determinism in that way. How should we debate or refute in that situation? Thank you.
I don't know, debate and argue with that. Again, I think it is similar to a question that was asked this morning, the conditions, because we talk about the karmic seed and immediate cause and conditions, or present cause and conditions. Even that condition, whether even those conditions are not part of karma or kind of already kind of decided, and I think more or less I think it's similar kind of thoughts. I don't know the word free will is the right word. I want to use it. I don't, because, but, in Buddhist understanding that we do have certain choice and control, over our actions and, our thoughts, not total control, but, if that's the cases, then it's not possible to practice the path and to overcome all the afflictive emotions, delusions, afflictive emotion, then it's not possible to achieve nirvana and all of that, salvations or whatever you call, moksha, because we have no control, If the karmic wind blow in that direction, it will happen. If the karmic wind doesn't blow in that direction, it will never happen. So then it goes against all these basic understandings that everyone has the potential to become fully awakened or to achieve total liberation or nirvanas, which not only the Buddhist says, also we might have different view on what the nirvana is, what the liberation is. There might be different view on what liberation is. There might be different way how to achieve that liberation, but also in other concept, they have also concept of liberations. And again, why do we practice to achieve that liberations or nirvana if we have no choice? Because even we try to practice, it might not be possible because karma might not lead us in that way. So then, it become, everything become, then everything become almost like, you cannot say, nirvana is possible. You cannot say, fully awakened state is possible. and have that kind of view, whether I continue to give time for question and answers, or I continue to kind of talk, or whether I want to have a break, is in my choice now, is in my hand.
No free will.
It is my choice what I decided to make decisions. And to say that I don't have that choice seems against my direct experience. I can make any of those 3 decisions now. I have no choice. I can make any of those 3 decisions. For me, that is direct experience. And for me, that means it goes against very direct experience of that. And in all this, in all the teachings, philosophy, they say, the worst you can do is go against direct experience. You can argue with the direct experience. You can argue with inferential understandings and different way of that. But when it comes to direct experience, Chandrakirti says, if you try to argue the direct experience, you are crazy. You are like a crazy. So that's all I can say about it. I don't have any others to kind of make any other comments on that. Yes, please. The other questions? Yeah. So I decided
Yes.
to continue the questions.
I was waiting on your decision. Geshe Sherab.
So
Juliet,
that one, I make the choice, okay?
Juliet, would you like to ask your question?
Unmute at the moment. Oh, there we go. Geshe, I've been very interested when you talked about the causes and conditions. That was the first time I've really had a chance, and it's been a lot that you've talked about it, had a chance to really drill down into that and to my own personal situation. And I find it in my situation how somebody who's come from a lot of illness in my life, illness such as delusion, attachment, but physical suffering and mental illness also. How do you deal with understanding causes and conditions and the karma, trying to get out of that?
Yeah, I think it's not easy. When you are dealing with someone who has such very challenging, difficult situations, the only way that we can understand is to do with our own experience. Of course, there can be karmic potentials, karmic seed involved, definitely, in our experiencing the pain, to see that happenings, to see the hardship, the pain of someone that is either close to you or maybe not necessarily personally very close, but someone you have to deal with, and that you are being affected by their pain and sufferings, whether it is on physical level, emotional level, mental level, all of that, that it has been affected your mind in a negative way, the pain, the sufferings, whatever different feeling that is disturbing your mind, those are kind of, our own karma, as well as immediate cause and conditions being affected in terms of encountering such situation with such individual with such pain and sufferings, as well as our inability to not to have the right state of mind through our practice to kind of not be affected by that, so those are if we have a strong practice, strong mind, then, through your practice and mind, we might be able to kind of stop from being too overwhelming and influence too negatively, so there is that part. And when it comes to the others, as I mentioned, there's definitely karmic potential seed involved. At the same time, many other causes and conditions, sometimes is their upbringings, the environments that they grow up in, sometimes, there is for illness or certain things, there is contributions of, genetics, DNA, genetics that can kind of pass from the generations, and some others environment that sometimes we are not completely aware or understand, but like sometimes when you are young or something, you are being exposed to certain chemical or certain things, environment around that could have been the kind of immediate cause and conditions that might have affected for your health, and then again, in terms of our emotions, again, sometimes it can be immediate cause and conditions can be affected by the environment. Sometimes we are not even aware that we might have been affected when we were young. We don't even remember that, things that we observe, things that we experience, things that we have seen, some things we have heard, things we have experienced, so those different other cause and condition could, influence and affect, our state of mind, the way we think, the way we look the world differently, our perception of the world, our outlook of the world could have been affected by a lot of things that we sometimes we are not even aware from what we saw, what we hear, from what we have observed, what we read, what we listen to, what we watch, all of those could have impact, contributions, image contributions, just like as they says, child who has been exposed or watching too much violent movie or other things can affect their minds, even though in that moment they are not aware of that, but gradually it can affect, so like that, many things. So there can be, many different cause and conditions, so those are the we can try to understand karmic and immediate, many possible or many different immediate cause and condition that could have contributed for someone's physical illness, as well as emotional illness, struggles and all of that. And through that, the point is you try to generate, by understanding their pain and suffering, regardless of whatever cause and conditions, trying to generate compassions, trying to practice, trying to understand and feel their pain and suffering, and try to practice compassion as much as possible, try to feel compassion as much as possible, And as I mentioned, whether it's our own or whether it's others, we try to change the experience, this kind of painful suffering experience, by trying to change, the present cause and condition in whatever we can. And sometimes even trying our best, trying to change by changing in whatever way to change the immediate cause and condition, the present cause and condition. Sometimes even with all of that, sometimes we cannot change. Sometimes we are unable to change. We try all this, but sometimes we're unable to change. In that situation, then it is better to say it's karma and accept it. And instead of trying to fight against it so much. We have fight it, trying to change it with everything that we possibly do, that is to change the present cause and condition. And despite changing all of that, not being able to change, that means the karmic potential too strong, and it's already ripened too strongly. The karmic potential has ripened too, and in such situation, then, kind of accepting in a way that, not only experiencing the result of karma, but trying to see it as something positive. One of the problems I see is we see I'm experiencing, or anyone experiencing the result of negative karma, this suffering. We only see that part. You don't see something positive. You see a negative. Do you get it? I'm experiencing suffering of negative karma. Instead, you should try to see it. I'm exhausting the negative karma. I'm completing the negative karma. That part, a lot of time we don't see that. We don't focus on that part. And when you don't focus on that, instead of being something joyful about it, it becomes something negative. But when you try to see, it is not only experiencing whatever the pain and suffering that I'm experiencing now, or someone else, but by experiencing that, they are completing or clearing so much of negative karma, and therefore they don't have to experience all of that in the future. So seeing something positive from that perspective, being clear, being purified, being cleansed, the focus should be on that. And a lot of time, I think what I see is people doesn't focus that path. They just focus on, either me or others experiencing the karma or negative karma. And by that, then we have kind of, the response emotionally is some more negative, unpleasant reactions, feeling towards that. But when someone is able to see not only your experience, but it is a way of, is like, you have certain illness, and then there's a solution to that. There is you might have to go to a certain surgery to fix that problem. Of course, nobody wants to go to surgery if they don't have to go. Is something that we don't want to go through, something uncomfortable, something unpleasant. But by going through the surgery, if it can be fixed, that problems, that you don't have to experience that illness, the suffering, pain again and again, that painful repetition all the time. Wouldn't it be better to go through a little bit of this uncomfortable, whatever, and then clear that? You will feel joyful in that, and by understanding at least now there is a solution to that. And so same way, if we apply similarly, whatever you are going through or someone is unpleasant, it is something painful, something suffering, something unpleasant. But by going through that, it is completing, clearing, purifying so much of negative karma that we don't have to deal anymore in the futures. That is a relief in a way. And so I think that is where one should try to focus on that. I often see people just not being able to focus on that particular part, and then and so and when you don't see that part, or when you don't feel that, sometimes maybe we is here, but we cannot feel that way. Do you get it? Yeah. Intellectually, we understand is purifying, is clearing, is that, but somehow we cannot feel it. And when you don't feel it, then it becomes much more difficult. And so again, how can we go from here to here? That is always then the practice, meditations. That gap between the intellectual, dry understanding and the experiential understanding, the feeling of that. Sometimes we have a lot of gap in between that. Here we understand, but there's no really feeling, there's no really experiential understanding. And so the gap is the practice, the meditations. And so that is what we need, and so, but if we can really not only understand here, but if we can really feel it, it is really kind of being really purifying, cleansing that, then one can feel joyful about it. It is possible for someone to feel joyful about it, despite all the discomfort and the pain, despite all the discomfort and the pain, at the same time, to be able to feel joy as well, and not being overwhelmed and devastated by that pain and sufferings. It is possible. Someone to, yeah. And also to understand, when we experience pain and sufferings, it doesn't always necessarily, means is something negative. Sometimes it can be positive, and maybe, I don't know, maybe we can discuss a little bit later. Okay, so Chanjo Samjo Rainbow Che Majapana Keku Chi Kawa Nyamba Meb Kong Le Kong Do Pe Show.